When we were younger, we could never muster up the courage to string the letters into the word out of fear or even a certain sense of shame. Children are curious about sex and sexuality as there is always a sense of hush hush around the topics. Freud suggests it creates within them a fundamental conflict which he calls the ideals of education. Children want to know about sexuality, but the grown ups tell them they need to know about something else. Sex education can be defined as programs offering information on sexuality and contraceptions. This also encompasses the gender identity, consent, and awareness about sexual abuse. It aims to develop awareness about the sexual health. Every Indian can imagine an old uncle widening his eyes the moment he hears the word sex. A lot of people consider being open about sex to be a Western influence and something that corrupts our culture. Yes, sex out of everything else is corrupting our culture. In fact, some people are so scared of its influence that when adolescence education program was about to be launched in 2006, it got into a lot of controversy and sex education got banned in several states in following year. In 2016, Human Resources Development Ministry didn't even want the word sex or sexual to be part of National Adolescence Program. This culture-induced sex education has been in India long before independence. It was launched to promote birth control up until 1970s, and that's all sex education was in India. Population control for adults, that worked out well, huh? It was only in 2003 that we realized that we need to talk about STDs. A lot of people might find the idea of sex teaching vulgar because they think it's about teaching people how to have sex. Sex education is knowing your body and being prepared for its changes. Without it, you might figure out some things, but definitely not all the hidden features. And if you're not careful, you're going to probably break something. According to a 2019 report compiled by the Family Planning Association India, 21% of Indian youth falls into the age group of 10 to 19 years. Lack of comprehensive sexual education, inaccessibility and lack of knowledge around contraceptives, erroneous sex education due to early exposure to porn, etc. is culminating into unhealthy sexual practices and reproductive ill health are large issues that plague the youth.
अलग-अलग सिचुएशन में लड़कियां फंस जाती हैं और वहाँ पे सपोर्ट सिस्टम कोई भी नहीं होता है। मैं उत्तर भारत में भी यूपी और बिहार में अगर सेक्स एजुकेशन की बात करके आप बहुत बड़ा अपराध कर रही हैं कि सेक्स एजुकेशन पे अगर हम बच्चों के साथ बात नहीं करेंगे तो फिर बड़े पे क्या बात करेंगे जाके।
तो लड़कियां जो 10 से 14 या 16-17 के एज ग्रुप में ये सारी लड़कियां वो आपके साथ कैसे क्वेश्चंस पूछती है अपने यौनिकता के बारे में, जिस सारी चीज़ों के बारे में उनके क्या क्वेरीज रहती है?
आपने बहुत सही सवाल किया, वो क्वेश्चन पूछती ही नहीं है। क्वेश्चन करने के मतलब होता है आप बहुत खराब महिला हैं क्योंकि आप पितृसत्ता को चुनौती दे रही हैं, आप जेंडर को चुनौती दे रही हैं, हमारे दिमाग में बेरियां पड़ी हुई हैं।
The term sex and sexuality carries a lot of taboo within the premise of school, especially in presence of authority. In most schools, there is a complete lack of proper dialogue around sexuality education. Even if it is 21st century, many teachers in many schools shy away from talking about reproductive issues and reproductive health. The transformation of psyche and views demand social flexibility and openness to welcome changes in order to ensure a progressive society. After all, it is the uncontrollable urge of man which justifies rape. Moreover, not only women but even children are becoming victims of sexual assault and trafficking. Unfortunately, due to the uncommonness of sexual awareness, kids are not able to judge when they are being harassed, and even if they feel unusual, they refrain from discussing the problems with the parents because of the social prejudices and parochial mindset. Even men are afraid of discussing the reproductive issues regarding erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, etc. When we start normalizing conversation around sexual health and education, connecting it to the respect, consent, safety, and love, We are working with the chance that this generation will make far healthier choices when it comes to sex and sexuality. Silent, lethal, invisible. Biological weapons do not require an explosion or any warning. They just come and conquer. Biological warfare is not a new concept in arena of international politics, as it has been used as a tool to sabotage enemy in previous centuries. Biological weapons are a subcategory of weapons of mass destruction, in which there is a deliberate use of microorganisms like pathogens and toxins to cause disease and death in humans, livestock, and yields. From its usage in 14th century by Mongols to its usage in Imperial Japan during 1930s 40s against Chinese, it has always been a threat to global security. The evolution of bioweapons can be broadly categorized into four phases. First phase includes the post-World War II developments with the evident use of chlorine and phosgene in Ypres. The second phase was marked by the use of nerve agents like tabun and cholinesterase inhibitor and anthrax and plague bombs. The initiation of third phase was marked by the use of biological weapons in Vietnam War during 1970s, where deadly agents like Agent Orange were used. Fourth and last phase includes the time of biological and technological revolution, where genetic engineering techniques were at their peak. Traditionally, they have been used in wartime in order to defeat enemy. But with the emergence of violent non-state actors, bioterrorism is another potential threat to the security of the states. There are certain goals that are associated with the use of biological weapons. Firstly, it is purposed to hit the economy of the targeted country, breaking down government authority, and have a psychological effect on masses of the targeted population. It is also a kind of psychological warfare, as it may hit a smaller number of people but leaves impact on wider audience through intimidation and spreading fear. It also creates natural circumstances under which a population is induced with disease without revealing the actual perpetrator. With the advancement in genetic engineering techniques, more lethal biological weapons are being produced every day around the world. Countries which are economically deprived are more likely to pursue such goals, as it is difficult for them to go for heavy military sophistication, keeping into consideration their poor economic conditions. Biological weapons serve as an inexpensive tool for developing countries to address their issues in prevailing international security environment. During the initial decades of Cold War, United Nations of America and Soviet Union went for acquiring tons of biological weapons alongside nuclear proliferation. Anthrax letters in post 9/11 attacks revealed yet another dimension of bioweapons, which was the threat of bioterrorism from non-state actors. US became a victim of bioterrorism when in 2001 a powder was transported through letters containing bacterium called anthrax, infecting many people. One purpose which terrorists have is to make general masses feel as if they were unsafe in the hands of their government, which can be best achieved through the use of these weapons. The fact that biological weapons are cheaper and more devastating than conventional weapons make it more likely for biological weapons to be used by the terrorists. Also, the fact that they are easy to hide and transport and a small quantity can leave long-lasting impacts on larger population makes these weapons more appealing. Now that we are facing a global pandemic in the form of COVID-19, which according to some conspiracy theories is a biological weapon, pose even more serious challenge to the international security in coming decades. There is no such scientific research which proves coronavirus as a biological weapon, but the realization here is that whether or not it is a biological weapon, but the world was least prepared for it. Not only the developing countries but also the developed states suffered more despite having enormous medical infrastructures. The fact that there has been decline in incidents related to bioterrorism should never let us think that there is no possibility of such attacks. The fact that the world failed to handle COVID-19 puts a question mark on the credibility of measures if we are faced with bioterrorism. The medical community as well as general population needs to develop an understanding of how to respond if there is such attack. At the international level, there is dire need to develop some strong norms which discourage the development and use of such weapons in any capacity.